Hi, it's Diann with Truce Talks. Welcome to my conversation today with Askia Stewart Jr. He was an intern here at Truce the summer of his senior year with the Thunderbird School of Global Management. He demonstrated his incredible talent for us by creating an amazing video. He brought children in and filmed them trying to read the ingredients on other cleaning products, then reading Truce's ingredients. And that really demonstrated how special we are. He is without a doubt the most positive and uplifting person I know. Welcome to my conversation with Askia Stewart Jr. Good morning, Askia. It's really great to see you again. It's been a while.
Good morning, Diann. It's a pleasure. It's always a blessing being able to talk with you in any capacity.
You're amazing. I wanted to talk to you about what you're doing now. You're working with Thunderbird For Good. You graduated from Thunderbird, did you not?
I did. Yes, ma'am. December 2018.
Congratulations on that achievement.
Thank you.
And now you're still with them professionally doing Thunderbird For Good. Tell me what that's all about.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm actually working with the recruitment team for the undergrad Thunderbird side. And so a lot of my job consists of, working with high school or community college students as they transition into ASU, or they may not even know about ASU and then or Thunderbird. And so that's where I step in and kind of bring that awareness of what's possible with their degree, what different type of careers can they pursue following graduation and such.
And do you focus at all on graduate school after graduation from the undergrad program? Are they going on?
Yeah, so we do offer a 4+1 program in which we then hand it off to the Thunderbird grad team. And so, they're kind of half in our undergrad program, undergrad domain. And then once they hit their senior year, they can start taking classes as they pursue what would be a Master's of Global Management. And so they have a half a foot in undergrad, half a foot in grad school.
Tell people a little bit about Thunderbird. I don't think we've talked about Thunderbird that much on this podcast.
Yeah,
what is Thunderbird? What is Thunderbird?
Yeah, so it's a school that's focused on global management that lies within ASU. So it's a separate college, but it still sits under the ASU umbrella. And the premise, the mission, and the vision basically aligns with educating global leaders as they try and embark on solving a lot of the world's issues and problems and complications that center around the fourth industrial revolution, and of course the revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, of course, being Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, things along those lines.
How are you handling the concept of the fourth revolution? What does that mean to you? What are you seeing? Because you're very much technologically oriented.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm a huge proponent of the internet, right? And it's just ability to be able to sort of equalize things in capacity. But within that, there brings a lot of nuances and complications that a lot of people may not understand or know about. But on the other hand, it brings a lot of opportunity that a lot of people don't understand or know about or aware about. And so just in terms of sort of this transition, I think, of course, it takes the people to be able to adapt to sort of what the technology requires. But I think that's kind of where we step in as Thunderbird and say, hey, like these are the trends, these are the what's going on within both tech and things along those lines, international business, globalism in essence. And this is how we can ethically and sustainably be able to introduce these sort of ideas into the workplace, into the workforce, and contribute to the expansion of the fourth industrial revolution. This is how we navigate it. This is how we, this is how we make the world better. In essence, that's cliche, but I think ultimately that's the goal.
Is the plan, and I don't know how much you know about this, is the plan to open classes again for Thunderbird and ASU in the fall? What's that plan looking like right now?
Right.
Recognizing it's subject to change.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I even have a lot of personal ties. My little sister actually this morning just moved into Polytech, the Polytech campus. She's starting her freshman year. And so, of course, naturally, there's that worry of, what is this going to look like? What's going to be handled? What's the roommate situation? How is everything handling? But
Yeah.
ASU for sure is doing everything as thoroughly as they possibly can to allow students to come back. There's different modalities. So let's say you're in a classroom that has class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? They'll allow half of the class to attend on Tuesday, and then the other half on Tuesday is back at home doing ASU Sync. So it's a synchronous experience where they're in class on Zoom at the same time, and then they flip flop on Thursday, right? And so it's nice because that half number allows for social distancing in the classroom, so that students don't get too close or things along those lines. But yeah, they're going ahead.
Are you going to be on campus at all with any of this going on? Or are you operating remotely?
Primarily remotely right now. Fortunately, I only have to go in once a week. And so I'm up in a separate building away from high traffic areas personally. And so, but I only have to go in once a week just in case somebody stumbles along in the Thunderbird offices, and I could be able to assist or redirect them somewhere.
How is your family? How is everybody? How are your sisters? How are your folks?
Blessing. They're so well. Everybody's happy. Like I said, my little sister, or the older little sister, is transitioning into college. The younger one is starting her senior year in high school.
Wow.
And then my parents they're just doing so well. It's awesome because, I feel like I've grown up with them in essence. They're of course my parents, but I've seen them just evolve into these just awesome beings. And we, our relationship is just so good right now. And that's what I think the plus side of COVID is. I think that's a overwhelming blessing that COVID has provided, is that when I look around, even outside of my personal life, I see so many different families just spending significantly more time with each other. And I think the hustle and bustle of pre-COVID, made it difficult to do so, or we weren't aware enough or forced to be able to do it. And so I think that's just such a blessing. And I think within all of this, I think, our relationship has gotten significantly better, which is just awesome.
I think one of the things I like, admire, adore about you is you have such an incredibly sunny, positive view of everything that goes on around you. Do you work on that, or are you just that person?
Of course there are times, right, where that's not such, but it's always putting everything in context, right? I think that's probably one of the most important things of just how much of a blessing it is to just live, right? I think, and I don't want to come off as tone deaf in any capacity. I mean, there's of course evil, there's of course, negative things. But I think with the way that I was raised was to consistently look towards that light, right? Look for that optimistic perspective. And then just testing it. I know growing up and testing it whenever things seem grim, it always served me best to look for that optimistic outlook, or to hold on to that, because time in and time out, like consistently, life would always lean that way, right? Even in those dark times, right, where I'm consistently looking up towards that light and chasing that, eventually things get better in whatever capacity that may be. And so, I think optimism is significantly more practical across the board.
You'll live longer. I know that. I know that for sure. You'll live longer with that perspective than you will with the always looking at the dark side. And you've been involved with your church all your life, and you've been very actively involved in it. You have been like a leader. You're a leader in your youth group in your church. And the question I was going to ask you, it's the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and I'm Episcopalian. And I am wondering, where the Methodism connects to the Episcopalianism
Yeah,
in terms of that.
yeah, and so to my understanding, the Episcopalian side is more so the governance of the church body in and of itself, right? It's the structure of bishop, presiding elders, pastors, ministers, kind of the flow and the order in which the church is structured. And then the Methodism aspect comes in pertaining to like the process of the service, right? What is actually embodied in the service, and then how do the congregants actually interact with that embodiment. And so within Methodism, within Methodism, there's certain things and aspects that we actually perform and do within the church service, like a decalogue, certain offerings and certain communions, and like the verbiage that goes into these separate different aspects of a service are kind of what craft that Methodism. And so there's of course reasons and structures within it that are very traditional that people hold very near and dear, that you try and step outside of this service, right, you're kind of you're rubbing up against. And so there's a lot of there's a lot of beauty in that tradition that has transpired. I mean, the denomination in and of itself started with Richard Allen out of slave revolt, not having a place to worship, right? And so the attitude of, if it's not working here, let's go and create it our own place of worship. And then that's where it starts. And then it builds just significant tradition. The church in and of itself has been linked to many social justice movements and aspects, and oftentimes are the center of, the AME church was very prominent back in the civil rights era, and then continues to be a loud voice and a loud presence, a very large presence within social issues as of today.
Let's talk a little bit about how that might connect to Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. Is there anything going on there? I know that Phoenix has been quite active in terms of demonstrations and protests and things like that. Does the church get involved in those efforts?
Yeah, to some capacity. I mean, of course you hear it, and it's weird now because of COVID. Like, it's very, I'd be interested to see what this would be like, because I feel like this movement right now following the brutal death of George Floyd, right? I feel like this movement is different. In an aspect, I think there's a very unique touch to it, right? That I would be very interested in seeing what this would be like, have we all been congregating in a capacity that we normally do. But of course, a lot of there are like public statements, there are, preaching from the pulpit, certain ideas, right? And then there's congregation, and it is very interesting because in the past, right, we've stood as, places of being able to express and now I'm drawing a blank. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That is absolutely all right. It's like this bizarre perfect storm is going on now. We've got a national election. We've got the pandemic, which is global. Although in essence, we could say that our election is kind of global. Right. And then we have this issue, the Black Lives Matter issue. And it's like, the intricacies of this are fascinating to study, to look at, to observe. Right. And I've kind of been tracking a lot of it and thinking, wow, would one have happened without the other, kind of, in a way? I don't know. I don't know.
And that's a complete aspect of, like, I think a lot of, specifically with this Black Lives Matter issue, I think a lot of it has to do with people just being locked up. I mean, of course it's bad, right, of what we saw. But I think people being home all day, right, on social media, being home, being frustrated and agitated and bugged and annoyed, I think kind of is what curates this what we're seeing now, like what we're in the middle of. And so I think I'm very interested to see what studies, in 2-3 years actually look like, and trying to examine. And because, like you said, I think it's a perfect storm of things happening, perfect intersection
It will literally define our time in a way. And I heard on NPR the other day that when the 1918 pandemic hit,
Mm.
there was like no coverage at all in the newspaper. They were talking specifically about the New York Times. There was maybe a little blurb on the back page that this horrible thing was happening. But because World War One, or the Great War, was happening at the time, that dominated the news, and this devastating pandemic went fairly unnoticed in this country.
Wow.
And that's the reverse of what's happening now. Now it dominates every news cycle.
Yeah. Oh man, and it's so crazy. And I think it also just highlights sort of where a lot of faults are within systems, within our day-to-day routines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things along those lines. And I think it just significantly halted so much. And I think, yeah, I think it goes as far as to say it's just a perfect storm of things that are catastrophic and disrupting.
Are you going forward through this event? You are working with Thunderbird. Do you have plans to continue? And if so, where do you see yourself focusing in terms of the global management if you're going on to Thunderbird or into graduate school, which I sincerely hope you're going to do?
Yeah. So I really, of course, naturally, photography, videography, marketing,
Right.
things along those lines, it's where my passions lie. And so ultimately, what I would love to do is like brand management for a company outside of the US. I'm thinking Southeast Asia is kind of where I'm going. And so, I just have found myself in a very interesting situation because there's so many different forces of inspiration kind of entering my life in different ways that it's really going to take for me time to really sit down and schedule out and say, hey, like this is what I really want to do and paint that path. Because in terms of church, I just recently became a licentiate minister, right? And evidently, in order to become a pastor within the denomination, I need to do a master's of divinity, right? In order to get to that pastorship level, and then have my own church within the denomination. And so, that's of course a 2-year program. But then I'm also looking at, working with Thunderbird. I think it also feels so right to be able to go and do maybe like an online master's while I'm working there. From Thunderbird, there's a specific program that I'm looking at and kind of contemplating and thinking about moving forward with coming up here in January potentially. So, I think it's going to take a lot of, it's going to take prayer and really sitting out and kind of scoping out what it is that I want to do. But I'm in the middle of kind of figuring that out as well. But also while working, doing a lot of photography, a lot of videography. I have a couple of really interesting gigs going on right now that I think are really fun and exciting and could lead to other things as well. So,
tell me about them. What are you doing? What are you working on in terms of your art?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things right now, I'm working right now with the backup quarterback for the Cardinals. He's starting a cooking series. And so we're actually putting together, we filmed, one of the first shows 2 weeks ago. And so now we're in the editing process and getting ready to release that. And, that could potentially open up to a bunch of other different aspects and things that I can't see right now. And so, that's one thing I've done, some political campaign, videography, photos, and website design. So, it's COVID's dope in this capacity.
Yeah.
The opportunity it's crazy. So, yeah.
Well, what do you hope to find on the other side of this pandemic? What changes would you like to see occurring? What do you see? What do you think about what the future looks like beyond the fourth revolution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's back to that essence of intentionality, right? This idea that, spending more time with family, checking in on friends significantly more. I would like for that to be the underpin of what comes out of this. And sort of the main takeaway from everything that's going on. I think I really do think, you know, the checking in on people, and the ability to do something like this, right? This knowing that we've always had this technology, right? We've always had Skype, we've always had Zoom, and this ability to reach people. But now I think it's being utilized, and I would love to see that carry through. Where it's like, you know, if I really do want to go see, you know, my second cousin or something who lives on the East Coast that I haven't seen in years, I can reach out to them and schedule a Zoom call and catch up really quickly over, you know, 30 minutes. And I think that level of intentionality, even though that may be cliche, I think that's really, really, really important. And I think it's a leveler, right? I think that understanding that really makes the things that I think I would call petty previously seem very, very small. So take, like, you know, somebody who would complain about Starbucks, right? The barista getting the wrong milk in their Starbucks drink and that really messing up their day, right? I think what COVID does is kind of reset that and kind of cuts that out, right? Because now they have to check in on family members because they may be, you know, previous conditions may make them higher risk to COVID. I think that influx, that change of perspective, I think is very, very, I think it has a very net positive result in doing so. And I think that intentionality kind of makes life a little bit richer than what it was previously.
You know, that richer is a nice word. You know, in our day-to-day, normally get in the car, drive, do everything, work here, go there. Now that we're sort of forced to be quiet or more quiet, those things become more important. I find myself checking in with people on a regular basis. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this. You're part of my extended family. And it has been a very rich time in that regard. You know, that's a very interesting observation. I like that word.
Yeah. Because I would be saddened if that were, you know, if that were lost, you know, if we will ever return to normal. I'd be really sad to see that we go back to.
I don't think normal exists anymore, Askia. I really don't think it does.
Yeah.
I think that your generation, even my generation, we're going to create a brand new normal.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but look at how normal Zoom has become.
Right.
It's like normal. Everybody knows about Zoom fatigue, you know, and all that thing. Everybody knows. But this is what we do.
100%. I was even listening. It was interesting. I was on this train. I was listening to a radio station, a sports radio station, and they were literally talking about the same thing of, you know, just highlighting the fact that a lot of tailoring businesses are going out of business because there's no market for a suit anymore. No. Right? Because everybody's at home and there's no need to wear a suit. And just that culture shift of a casual America was something that they were highlighting, which I thought was super interesting. And I'm interested to see what prongs of similar things like that kind of take form or like head themselves.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this year.
One of them is shoes. You know, women with the spike heels and all that, there's no need. You're not going to sit at your front of your computer and talk and be wearing full regalia. It's very, very interesting.
It is.
You know, they're talking about the fact that since sea cargo shipping has been minimized, all of a sudden scientists can study the calls of the whales, the songs of the whales, because it's quiet. It's quiet. We have animals showing up in urban environments now. It's quiet.
Interesting.
We've become more quiet, and therefore, as you were saying, we're becoming more introspective, more aware of other people and of our values, because we're quiet. We're at home.
Right. And I think one of the things.
Oh, I am so sorry.
No worries at all.
I know, you know the issue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always forget to turn my phone off. I'm turning my phone off. There it goes. God.
But I kind of forgot what I was going to get.
That's okay. We totally got distracted by a distraction. You know, thinking ahead again with your photography, because you know that the spot you did for Truce with the kids,
Mhm.
is still hands down the favorite piece that's ever been produced. Those kids were just golden.
They were
And
adorable.
are you doing things like that? Still doing special projects? When you talked
Yes.
about wanting to be a brand manager,
Mhm.
is that the sort of thing you're looking at, sort of setting the tone for companies and doing things like that?
Definitely. And so,
Hmm.
I think my path towards it is specifically focusing and honing in on content creation. So I've
Mhm.
worked with companies recently, and specifically like within the coffee market, which is a very interesting market. But working with coffee shops to try and create like their content that they're posting on social media. And so my sort of strategy and outlook right now is build up that content, build up the content and the portfolio for it to be able to pitch, to be able to, get my leg in whenever that opportunity may arise.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm right now more so head down in content creation across the board and portfolio building, at least during COVID, while COVID's right now.
So building content, t- tell me more about what that is. What does that entail for a coffee shop?
Yeah,
How do you?
Yeah, so specifically, one of the biggest things is just what are we, right? So it's building out these almost interview style videos, specifically talking about the story of the coffee shop, that would maybe sit on like the front of a website, and then
Okay. Okay.
just in terms of like a standard video, right? And then moving into sort of what I've seen before and have done is building out these large, and we've done it at Truce, but building out these large buckets of content, that focus in on
Mhm.
specifically honing in on your target market and what they would want to see, or target client and what they would want to see, and building out these buckets of content so that when they begin to look at your website and your social media, that there's a sort of cohesive look and a cohesive feel, no matter what it is. So one of the things that I even took away when we were working with the company when I was interning, was just thinking about when you're sending out even proposals on the company side, right, or any of the informational guides that they're handing out, or things, even cards or things along those lines. All of those aspects actually need the same type of photography, the same type of branded content.
Mhm.
Whether it's something on like a pamphlet, or it's something that they're seeing in social media that's hitting their screen. And so I step in and say, hey, these are the things that pertain to your brand. This is sort of the thought process in collecting a lot of this content, in order to speed up the process and the business that you do. Take for example, I've done this now with somebody who owns their own gym, right? So I say, instead of actually trying to post everything as it's coming, let's get you a bucket of content, right? Maybe it's like 100 photos, 120 photos. Let's get you a video to put on your website, and let's do maybe like a couple of Instagram videos that we can push on Facebook ads, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
that are really enticing, quick little 15, 20-second commercials that are very enticing, to be able to kind of build out this brand portfolio for you, so that you can focus on more of the business side. So doing, business deals,
Mhm.
whether it's like
Mhm.
partnerships in some capacity or things along those lines, so that you're
Wow.
not just sitting there filming the people that you're training, um, and then having to spend time posting or filling out a caption and posting the content and thinking, is this the best time? Is this not the best time? So, hooking up with those scheduling platforms as well, I think is important. But, you know, I'm sure, there's so many
Yeah.
different aspects of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting bigger and bigger and more complex.
Definitely.
Um, yeah. I'm so happy for you. I don't want to say I'm proud of you. That goes without saying. You've lived up to every expectation I have of you, and I am so pleased at the way you're growing, what you're doing. And I'd like to come back and talk to you in, let's say, 6 months, maybe 8,
Mhm.
and see what's changed, what's evolved, how your thinking has changed. Is
Mhm.
that something you'd be willing to do?
I would love that.
Okay,
That'd be
terrific. We're on. Askia Stewart Jr., Thank you so much for being and for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me on. And as always, I wish you and everybody the best.
A blessing on you, sir. Okay. Bye.
Take it
Bye.
easy, guys.